this is probably feeling like overkill for the people who do have a look at my Reddit or subreddit and my ex and the things that I've been speaking about for the past nearly 2 months. But I think it's super, super significant. And I know I'm not alone in speaking about this footage. I've heard others speak about it, but I just don't know that it's getting a huge amount of airtime. I get that it might not be getting as much airtime right now because this case is at the appeals stage and new evidence isn't being discussed. And I know that now that I'm learning a little bit more about the legal system through this case, that they can't, admit any new evidence or scrutinise the evidence in the same way they could have at trial. But this is really big, like on so many levels. So I thought that we should talk it through again, so that we can kind of get a sense of what's going on with the footage and why I'm so concerned about it. So when I first started to look into the evidence of this case, when I came across the Hoosier Harveststore footage, it was one of the points that made me really stop and question guilt, which now might seem silly to people who know all the evidence. But when I first looked at it and I looked at the state's timeline, it was starting to sort of fall into place and add up and certainly make me suspicious of Richard Allen. Which, as you know, if you follow me in any way now, I'm not suspicious of Richard Allen at all. I'm all for advocating for him because I do believe that when you put together everything, that Richard Allen is innocent. And I've come to that from looking at so much of this information and scrutinising it. But in the early stages, when I was still getting to know what was going on in this case, I looked at the Hoosier Harveststore footage and I really couldn't reconcile it. I know people would say, well, it's just this blurred silhouette of a car, how can you tell that it's a Ford Focus? But the fact was that road wasn't, a highly travelled road as far as I'm aware. The timing was just too perfect and the car was just too similar for it to be ignored. So at that point, I was ready to call it a day and accept the verdict. But something just niggled at me and I was like, no, I'm not ready to call it a day. And so I had another look at that footage and found some things that were concerning. So that was probably about 6 weeks ago now. And since then, more information's come up. And now there are multiple layers of issues with this Hoosier Harveststore footage that I think is super important. Because I think this piece of footage could actually really undo the case against Richard Allen if it's scrutinised. And I really think it needs to be scrutinised, and it hasn't been. So let's go back to the beginning. So apparently this footage was obtained and verified by the FBI back in 2017, I'm guessing. And yet it didn't seem to be something that served a major purpose until 2022. So basically, that car that goes past at 1:27, an ideal time for the perpetrator to be driving past and headed to the old CPS lot, that footage was not shown to the public. It was not used as an appeal for more information, despite the fact that they were appealing for anyone who parked at the old CPS building between the hours of 12 and 5. So I'm a little confused because clearly they thought that the car was potentially parked there between 12 and 5, yet they had this video that showed the car driving towards that location at 1:27. So where did they get the 12 to 5 time frame from? Anyway, what we know from cases like the Idaho 4 is that car images have formed part of early investigations and appeals for information. So I'm not sure why, if they had this footage of a car that was unidentified going past that Hoosier Harveststore at 1:27, around the kind of window of time that the perpetrator may have arrived, why that wasn't widely looked at. Now, there are people who say it's so obviously a Ford Focus. These are a lot of the people who believe Richard Allen is guilty. And if it's so obviously a Ford Focus, I'm just not sure why law enforcement didn't see that back in 2017, and why they didn't then look up, who drives the black Ford Focus in this very small town? Because according to court testimony, there was only one of that model in the town. So why did they not look at it in more detail back in 2017? Particularly when there doesn't seem to be any other cars going past at that time. I mean, we don't know. We've never seen the video. Nobody's ever seen the video. And that kind of takes us into the second point of concern with this footage. Is there a video, or is it stills? Is it one of those video cameras that just takes stills at 1 second intervals? Or is there some continuous footage somewhere? That doesn't seem to have ever been explained to us where it is, because in the evidence it's stipulated to be a video, but we've never seen a video, and nobody seems to have explained why. So that's a point of concern too. If a video doesn't exist and it is just stills, fine, but why do we not have that clearly stated? Now, the next issue comes with Steve Mullen's testimony in the trial, where he said that in 2022, when the tip about Richard Allen came to light again, that he went and took a picture of Rick's car and then went to the Hoosier Harveststore to get the video footage, because he had only taken screenshots of the footage back in 2017. Now, this sounds again incredibly odd. So he goes back to the Hoosier Harveststore that still has the footage after 5.5 years. Okay, I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is. I guess it was in this case. But why did he do that? Because the FBI had already collected that footage and had verified it. So why did he not access the evidence that was already obtained by the FBI? Big red flag there. It doesn't make sense. So are we to believe that the exhibits in the trial are frames from the 2017 footage that was taken by the FBI, or are they still frames from when the footage was retrieved in 2022 by Steve Mullins? It's so confusing, and again, doesn't seem to have ever been verified. Now, if we look at that, that shows some serious concerns about the chain of custody and some serious concerns about which video is a verified video, which is not. And yeah, anyway, I guess there's a whole big issue there procedurally about how this video was obtained and used in trial against Richard Allen. Then we can add the other layer, which is the first layer that I came to when I first was scrutinizing this footage, and that is that this footage looks really weird. So we can't see a video, yes, but we can see still frames 1 second apart for, I think it's 9 seconds that the car goes across the screen. And when you scrutinize that car going across the screen, you see some issues with it. I've seen some that I've noticed through using AI, and I know I'm not a digital forensics expert, I'm not pretending to be, but I did use AI to have a look at the pixels and understand the footage better, because my 42-year-old eyes are not great at probably examining details. But also I've seen other people note that they've also looked at this from different angles, and there's a number of concerns with this footage. One is that that car seems to move at the exact same distance per 1 second interval. The wheels don't seem to turn or move. It looks like it's a ghost gliding along the screen at a fairly slow speed. I've heard some people estimate it's a faster speed, but I guess from the estimations I've done, which again are AI generated because I'm not a digital forensic expert, but what we're seeing there is a car that is not going at a normal speed. It is going extremely straight. There doesn't seem to be any switching around of the wheels, and it's a gravel road, so that's kind of unusual. It's not sort of sliding on ice. It looks like a picture of a Ford Focus, maybe Richard Allen's own car, has been stamped across the screen to look like a car moving across the screen. Across the road. Now, this is pure speculation. I am not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm just saying what it looks like. That car looks more pixelated and blurred around the edges than any of the other cars seen on that road, on that footage, like Kelsey German's car and Betsy Blair's car and Sarah Carbar's car. So why is it that the perpetrator's car, potentially, is less clear than the witness's car? Additionally, there's been comments about the size of the car, that it looks larger than Sarah Carbar's car or Betsy Blair's car, again suggesting it isn't then a Ford Focus. If that footage is genuinely a car going past at 127, and I say if, well then whose car is it? Because it doesn't match a Ford Focus if it's bigger than a Saturn and Betsy Blair's SUV. And if it's not correct footage, then why do we have this? Who has made this footage? This is no small issue, and my concern is that this footage was stipulated to by the defence. Well, the 2017 recovered footage from the FBI was stipulated to, but what was used in trial? And are those stills from this footage that the FBI accessed from the Hoosier Harveststore? I think this needs to be figured out. And in addition to that, those still frames or the video, if it exists, need to be explored by digital forensics, because there's something wrong with that video on multiple levels. I don't know if I've explained that clearly. I hope that I have. You're welcome to have a read of what I've written in the subreddit and on X, as Daisy asks. I am not at all trying to pretend that I'm an investigator. I've got really interested in this case initially from the psychological perspective, but then I've sort of dug further and I found a few things that I think are really important, and I've kind of become very persistent and obsessive perhaps about this, but I think that we need to be, right? If we don't do this, who will? And I think that that's why there is so much public interest in this case, and we need to keep generating it. I believe Richard Allen is an innocent man, and he's sitting in jail and has been now for several years suffering, and he doesn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. And so I won't give up. I've copped a lot of backlash from people who believe Richard Allen's guilty initially, and I understood that, but they've actually generally left me alone now. But I'm actually copping a lot more backlash from people who don't believe he's guilty, but don't like my voice for some reason. And I don't mean my cool Aussie accent. I mean the things that I'm saying. I'm not trying to be the only investigator in this case and have my own points that are better than everybody else's. I'm just trying to raise some points, but nobody wants to listen to them. And I know I've been told before it's because I'm not open to feedback. But I am. But I just haven't seen any feedback that suggested that this point that I'm raising here, and some of the others, is wholly inaccurate. Or inaccurate in any way. So I really will continue. I'm not somebody who's going to be scared off by people mocking me. I have worked very hard to have a pretty solid sense of self and identity. I try not to have an ego, but Freudian slip there for the haters. But yeah, I believe so much in this, and I won't give up, because I cannot allow myself to give up as long as Richard Allen is sitting in jail, an innocent man accused of a terrible, horrendous crime and suffering for it. And Abby and Libby have not got justice, and that's not okay. something pretty sinister and terrible has happened. And I don't just mean the murder here. And so I'll continue to advocate. I'll continue to post information, flood my subreddit, even though I'll get downvoted to 0 pretty much every time. And I'll continue to send tips to the lawyers if I believe that there is something that I haven't seen raised publicly. And I will continue to fight this case until Richard Allen is exonerated, and until they actually investigate who the true killers are and who the true criminals are, I guess, in this case. And I don't know for sure who those are, and I'm not going to heavily speculate on that because I don't have any evidence to back that up, but I am going to continue to speculate and poke holes in the evidence against Richard Allen, because I believe it's an entirely flawed case. And I believe that not only is there a level of unfairness here and cherry picking of information, I believe that the information is actually potentially not factual, right? So yeah, the Hoosier Harveststore footage, I hope more people will look into it. Please look into it. See what you think. Look at the pictures. See if you can figure it out. I mean, if there's any digital experts out there, I would love to hear from you what you think is going on here, because I'm just a psychologist mum from Australia. I'm only basing this on AI looking at pictures, me looking at pictures, and somewhat, yes, my critics will say, on vibes, because yes, I did initially believe that Richard Allen was not guilty, not just based on vibes, but based on the psychology. And I had this feeling that this video there was something wrong with it. It just doesn't look right. But it's not just about vibes, it's about looking at information in more detail as well, which I think that I've done now. So we've got multiple points of contention here, even if we say that the video itself isn't doctored in some way. The issue is this chain of custody legally as well, because there just doesn't seem to be any clarification. There is no reason for Mullins to have gone back to the footage at the Hoosier Harveststore, as in gone to the Hoosier Harveststore to get the footage in 2022 if this footage was collected earlier. There is no reason that he did not know that there was a car on that footage, and they didn't appeal for that information earlier. There just is a lot of weird stuff going on with this footage. Anyway, I hope that it gets followed up. I hope that this is one of the keys that will help Rick finally get justice and be able to get back to his life, which will be, of course, very, very different after going through this ordeal. So one final note before I log off and get on with my day, and that's about Kathy Allen, and I've continued to send messages of solidarity through the subreddit Delphi Mystery, but also through Facebook groups. Kathy, we stand with you. I stand with you. I can only imagine what you're going through. This is horrendous, and just want you to know that there are a lot of us that support you and know that you are acting in the best interest of Rick. And if you ever need any support, just know that there are supporters out here that will wholly back you, and I'm certainly one of them. Okay, over and out, everybody. Have a great day. Please take some consideration of what I'm saying. If you don't like what I'm saying, that's totally fine. Please try not to be mean, though. I don't think there's any need for meanness. We can disagree and still be respectful. And yeah, speak later. Bye.